Hey guys, welcome to Rightly Dividing, Read Right, Believe Right, and we use simple Bible interpretation principles to take on verses that we believe are often misunderstood by people or are just purely difficult to explain, and we try to make them simpler to understand because we believe that everyone can understand the Bible. There's some basic principles you need to follow. First is you need to read the pretext and the post-text. Ask questions like who's speaking, who's the audience, what's the message, and that's going to help you get to understand what that verse in itself means in light of its context. Secondly, you want to let scripture interpret scripture. The Bible is good at explaining itself. I also want to say you should be careful of figures of speech and other literary tools, because the Bible, as much as it's inspired, is also a literary document, and so you have to take it that way as well. And finally, you also want to use multiple translations. It helps you avoid silly mistakes with the usage of some words. You can decide based on multiple translations what really is being meant in the originals. Today we're going to be talking about a very popular verse. It's Joel chapter 3 verse 10, and people don't even quote the whole verse, they just quote the end of it. It goes this way: let the weak say I am strong. And man I hope by the end of this video it would be clear to you what this verse means, but I can tell you for a fact that it's been misunderstood, it's been misused, it's terrible. But be patient with me. I'm gonna, because of this video, use a translation that's easy to read, because this is the King James, right? It's sometimes really hard, and so I'm just gonna go to the NIV and we're just gonna read it together and see if we can get what's going on here. Okay, so verse 1 goes this way: in those days and at that time, when I restored the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem. Who's talking? This is the prophet Joel speaking for God. Okay, don't forget that. So he's talking about the days he's going to restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem. These are the people of God, Israel. And then verse 2 says, I will gather all nations. So God will gather all nations. What nations? We don't know yet. Let's keep reading. And bring them to the valley of Jehoshaphat. There I will put them on trial. Oh wow, God's gonna put them on trial for what they did to my inheritance, my people Israel. Okay, so definitely the nations he's gathering and putting on trial is not Israel, so it's every other nation. So we know now that nations is not equal to Israel. So we know he's not putting Israel on trial. Okay, said because they scattered my people among the nations. You see, so he spread Israel outside, and divided up my land. Okay, verse 3 says, they cast lots for my people and traded boys for prostitutes. They sold girls for wine to drink. This is terrible stuff they're doing to Israel. And then verse 4 says, now what have you against me, Tyre and Sidon? Talking about some nations. And all you regions of Philistia. Remember, still nations, okay? Are you repaying me for something I've done? If you are paying me back, I will swiftly and speedily return on your own heads what you have done. That's judgment. For you took my silver and my gold and carried off my finest treasures to your temples. You sold the people of Judah and Jerusalem to the Greeks, that's to the nations, to other people, that you might send them far from their homeland. So we get the context here. Verse 7 says, see, I am going to rouse them out of the places. That means I'm going to take them out of the places to which you sold them, and I will return on your own heads what you have done. And then let's see the part that leads to the verse we're looking at, and try to see if you understand what's going on here. He goes on to say, I will sell your sons and daughters to the people of Judah. So all the nations will be sold to the people of Judah, God's people, and it's going to go backwards, as compared with what happened the last time. And they will sell them to the Sabians, a nation far away. So God is, and it says the Lord has spoken, so we've had our confirmation. God's the one speaking, saying that these people, these nations, these foreign heathen nations have attacked Israel. They've done all these despicable things to Israel, but God's going to protect Israel. And God is still speaking, and he keeps going and says, proclaim this among the nations. Okay, so it's still speaking to the nations. Tell the nations, prepare for war. Okay, what's going on here? Why would God be telling them to prepare for war? He said, rouse the warriors, so gather your own warriors. Let all the fighting men draw near and attack. So this looks like God is telling them, oh, you guys, you want to get back at me. I'm ready to give you vengeance and justice and judgment because of how you've treated Israel. So you guys, show us who's boss. Bring your guys. You know, it's like God is kind of being sarcastic and saying, you guys be strong. Come and show what you have. Show me what you've got. I'm going to defeat you. You know, that's what's going on here. And then verse 10 says, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Like, get ready for battle. And then he goes ahead to say, let the weaklings amongst you, like, let the weaklings say, I am strong. That whole verse, or that whole part, is in sarcasm. If you follow the context, it's saying, this is God speaking to the rebels, the nations of the world who are attacking Israel. And he's saying, you guys, gather all the weaklings, you know, let them all become warriors, let them all come and fight, you know. And then it goes on to say, come quickly, all you nations from every side, you know. And so that's the context. And because of time, I'm just gonna show you another translation, you know, in the ESV. Kind of makes it clearer. So we'll read from verse 8 because we get the picture, right? Verse 8 says, I will sell your sons and your daughters, okay, into the hands of the people of Judah. Who are these sons and daughters? He's talking about sons and daughters of the nations, right? And then he says, give them to the people of Judah, and they will sell them to the Sabeans in the nations far away. For the Lord has spoken. Proclaim this among the nations, consecrate for war. Stir up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. So he's speaking to the men of war who have been trained. And then he's also speaking to those who haven't been trained in verse 10, saying, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am a warrior. Like, the weak ones, let them come and fight. And then he goes on to say, hasten and come, all you surrounding nations. So we get the picture that God is really still referring to the nations, not to Israel. Not if it were referring to Israel, then it'll still be very difficult to appropriate that to the Christian. But I mean, it will be even less problematic to do that than when we use this to mean that we are supposed to say, or that the statement, let the weak say I'm strong, refers to us. That's not what the scriptures teach here. And so just to summarize, this verse is not speaking to Christians, is not speaking to Israel. It's speaking to the nations of the world, or those people who attacked Israel and treated them wrongly. And God is bringing vengeance and judgment to them and saying, bring on your best shot. I'm going to show you that you cannot do anything. And my advice would be, go back, read Joel, you know, the whole book if you can. But Joel chapter 3, read it in its whole context, and you start to realize that that statement, let the weak say I am strong, is not something we should apply today. Now, I have to clarify by also adding this. Should a Christian speak positively about situations? I believe you should. You should be able to see God at work in every situation of your life. But then, with regards to this scripture, you don't use this scripture to say that the weak should say they're strong. In fact, Jesus Christ himself, he said, my soul is sorrowful even unto death. And he's the epitome of faith, of all that is God. And so if he did that, we should realize that it's not about just being positive or speaking positively, but speaking by faith. And that's what's important. Hope this was helpful. Keep rightly dividing.